Education Officer at North Sydney Council. And as part of our Green Events Sustainable Education Program, we're presenting on Strata Rebates. So this was a webinar designed from resident feedback, really. There's so much going on in this space that we had a lot of people requesting this, and it's proved to be really popular so far. I think we had over 100 register. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Strata can be a complex and challenging sort of space, but there's also lots of opportunity. So we really wanted to combine the sort of federal, state, and local rebates and financial incentives and put them in one place for you, so that you can easily understand them and also, pass that information on back to your exec committee or other residents. We're joined by Brent Clark from Wattblock. So thanks, Brent, for joining us tonight. Brent is a Strata specialist, been working with Strata for 13 years plus now, and is our consultant for our Future Proofing Apartment program at North Sydney Council. So thanks, Brent. Before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge that on North Sydney, we're on Camaragal land, and pay my respects to our elders past and present. Some housekeeping as well. Feel free to send through any questions, but we'll try to tackle them at the end of Brent's presentation. But yeah, send them through at any time, and then we can go through them and try to group them all and answer as many as we can at the end there. And also, we are recording this webinar. We'll be hosting on our YouTube channel and be sending out to everyone who's registered in a couple of days. So yeah, thanks again, and passing over to you. Thanks, Brent.
Thanks, Jordan. Great to be back here. And on the screen, we can see a participant in the North Sydney Council Future Proofing Apartments program, 2 Rocklands Road, that actually claimed a local council rebate for an LED lighting upgrade. So let's get into it. As Jordan said, we're going to try and unpack the incentives and rebates from 3 different levels of government tonight: federal, state, and local council. And let's start at the top, and we'll start with one of the most famous incentives. And just before we get going, we will try and clarify there's a difference between a rebate and an incentive. So if you think an incentive such as the federal small-scale technology certificates incentive is a program that's set up, and if you go to a solar installer who's Solar Accreditation Australia accredited, formerly known as the Clean Energy Council or CEC accredited, then they basically do all the paperwork in the background, and they quote you a net price that already has the federal incentive taken off. So you don't have a cash flow impact. You're never paying out that money. But if we're talking about a rebate as an owner's corporation, a strata scheme, you actually pay that money out to the vendor, and then you do a whole lot of paperwork and you claim money to get paid back to you after the fact. So that's probably just the and look, we all make the mistake in the industry of calling incentives rebates and vice versa, but technically the small scale technology certificates that come from the federal government that have been lowering the cost of solar panels since the John Howard era are incentives. They're not actually rebates. And that incentive is part of a federal government program called the Small Scale Renewable Energy Scheme. And this...
Brent, sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
We can't see the presentation. I'm not sure if you got it up yet. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, 1 second. Okay. I'll just bring that. Okay, so that was the landing page, contents, and this is the page that we've been talking to. So this federal incentive on solar panels is so baked into the system that you really don't need to think about it as an owners corporation or a strata scheme. Every solar installer that you get to do a quote will actually have this SGC incentive built in, and they'll quote net, so they deduct the incentive from their original price of the solar system, and they give you a number that's reduced after this incentive is taken off the purchase price. So as an owners corporation, you really don't need to think much about it. You just need to check that your solar installer is accredited with Solar Accreditation Australia to be able to offer this incentive. Now, we're going to stay at the federal level, and that same scheme that's been providing this federal solar panel incentive has been expanded since the 1st of July, and it's got another name. It's called Cheaper Home Batteries, or CHB. And this, again, is a national initiative that is now doing to batteries the same thing that the federal SGC incentive has done for solar panels for over a decade, but this is now applying to batteries for the first time. And of course, there are a few criteria. The Cheaper Home Batteries is only available to batteries that are between 5 kilowatt hours and 100 kilowatt hours of nominal capacity, but it only applies to the first 50 kilowatt hours of usable capacity. So if you're doing a battery that's bigger than 100 kilowatt hours, it's not eligible at all. But if you do one that's up to 100, then it applies to, the first 25 or up to the first 50 of usable capacity in the battery. And the rebate's about $370 per usable kilowatt hour. So what that means is if you take a common battery size of like 13.3 kilowatt hours or 13.5 kilowatt hours, you might get like $4,000 off the upfront price of that battery. Now, another condition is the battery must be virtual power plant capable, and it's got to be installed alongside a new or an existing rooftop solar PV system. So you can't, if you don't have solar PV, you can't just do a battery, install that on its own and claim the incentive. Again, it's got to be installed by a Solar Accreditation Australia accredited installer, and it's got to be a battery, and the inverter must be listed on the approved product list. Now, there's, for us in the Strata universe, there's a system called Illume Energy, which is quite well known for their product, the Soul Share. And we're waiting for final clarification on this, but there's a possibility that if you're doing it in an apartment building that has more than 15 apartments, just say you've got 30 apartments, and you're doing a solar sharing system that has 2 Illume Energy Soul Shares, you would normally pair 2 separate batteries, one with each of the Illume Energy Soul Shares. And what we're hoping is that the 50 kilowatt hour usable capacity, you'll be able to we're hoping you'll be able to claim this cheaper home batteries up to 50 kilowatt hours of usable capacity on each of the two batteries, rather than having that combined together. And if you add the size of the two batteries together, and if the combined size goes over 50 kilowatt hours, that's where your rebate stops. So Will Anstey from Illum Energies, working hard to hopefully have the battery rebate work in those configurations, which is important to strata schemes. So we need to break up, if we're talking about incentives and rebates, we just have to have a few pictures in here, because you just can't go wall-to-wall text the whole way. So here's a building, Watson's Towers, opposite the Oaks Hotel, and it was the first building to do solar and batteries in the North Sydney area back in 2021. And they did a 10 kilowatt hour battery, you can see here. They would have benefited from the federal STC on the solar panels, but at that time there was no cheaper home batteries rebate, so they paid the full price for the battery. Now, we've covered in the solar and battery land the two important incentives that come from the federal government. Now we're going to drop down to the New South Wales government level, and this is probably the rebate that is of most interest to most people in stratas right at the moment. So the New South Wales Solar for Apartment Residents, or SOAR grant, is $25 million of funding, which was launched in February 2025, and it's a short-term rebate program to stimulate solar going into apartment blocks that are between 3 lots and 55 lots. And so that means if you're in a duplex, you're not eligible. And if you're in an apartment complex that's got 56 lots, you're not eligible either, or above. Now, this is a very generous rebate. And when I say it's very generous, it's up to 50% co-funding, but there's a cap of, if you're in a big strata block and you can dream up a $300,000 solar project, then you can only claim $150,000 rebate against that. In reality, because there are a few exclusions from the what can be included, the actual rebate is typically a little bit less than 50%, maybe around 43%, because there are a few items we'll go into that aren't eligible to have the co-funding claimed against. But this is truly a rebate, and it's a rebate paid in 3 installments throughout the project life cycle. And it can apply to individual solar systems. So just so you have a townhouse environment and you've got more than 3 townhouses, you could get a solar installer to quote on installing an individual solar system for every townhouse at the same time. And it's important that to be eligible for this rebate, it's an all-in. Every apartment needs to be connected up. You can't have a subset of apartments, getting solar installed and claiming the rebate. It's an all-in, or you don't get the rebate. So it can apply to individual solar systems, say on townhouses. It can apply to shared solar, such as those that will use the Illum Energy Sol Share, or it can apply to embedded networks. Although I have to say, where we've worked with buildings that have the embedded networks, we've been really disappointed at how difficult it is. And just to warn you that if you do have an embedded network, it's it's a tough battle to be able to get this rebate. Now, a few other conditions. You mustn't have had solar installed in the last 10 years. Your payback needs to be under 10 years. If you're doing a shared solar system, say with a Loom Energy, you can connect the common area meter up as long as you're connecting all the apartments as well. But you can't have more than 40% of the solar generated flowing into the common area meter. And that's because it's about reducing the cost of living inside the apartments. You can't take out what's called a power purchase agreement or solar finance for a $0 down offer in conjunction with getting this rebate. The owners corporation has to pay the balance, and it can pay three ways. It can pay from the Capital Works Fund, pay from a special levy, or pay from a strata loan or or energy finance, but it can't do the $0 down power purchase agreements in conjunction with it. Basic waterproofing under the solar panels can be included. Essential meter boards can be included, like smart meter upgrades. Unfortunately, it doesn't apply to company titles, only strata buildings. It doesn't apply to landlord-owned apartment buildings either. Now, not more than 30% of the solar generated from the systems can feed into the grid, but you can manage that with export limiting on the inverters. It doesn't apply to batteries, but you can get a quote from a solar installer that applies the SOAR rebate to the solar component, and you get a quote for the federal cheaper home batteries applied to the battery in the same quotation if you want to incorporate batteries. You need to get 2 competitive quotations from solar installers and submit them to the government. And this sounds a bit ambitious. I'm not sure if it's going to actually be met, but the install should be completed by March 2026 for the successful applicants. It's a 2-stage registration process. So in stage 1, any owner can get their strata insurance and get their most recent annual financial statement. And in about 15 minutes, they can get through stage 1. But the stage 2 application process, after you submit stage 1, you'll wait a couple of weeks and then you'll get a notification that you've progressed to stage 2. And stage 2 is a lot more involved. It's a fairly complicated process that'll need quite a bit of brain power from 1 or 2 strata committee members to help you get through it. And you'll need to do some basic algebra. And we've got in the appendices, we've got some worked examples that might help you with some of that basic algebra to be able to fill out the stage 2 online portal grant application. And this rebate is meant to close in December this year or earlier if the funds run out. And we know that over 600 apartment buildings have already registered interested in this program. So if there's one takeaway from today, if you're in a block that's eligible, basically when you get off this Zoom call, you can go search for the stage 1 registration, and if you've got those documents, get your stage 1 application in. So just to go through the models so people can get in their mind what could be eligible. So this is a SOAR eligible individual solar systems for individual units model. So you can see 4 individual solar systems all installed by one installer, all paid for by the owners corporation at the same time, connected to the individual lot meters, and that would be eligible. But if we have a look at, say, an example from Camaray, if you've got a townhouse like this, where 2 individual units installed solar within the last 10 years, then you're not eligible for the SOAR grant. And also, if you've got a townhouse environment that looks a bit like this, with lift-up garages on the ground floor as you drive in, and no underground car park, this is not considered to be a Class 2 building. And another eligibility requirement for the SOAR grant is that you're in a Class 2 strata building. So that means multiple vertically stacked apartments. So you've got to show that somewhere in your strata scheme, you've got vertically stacked apartments on top of each other, or you can have townhouses sitting on top of a platform, underground platform car park. But if you've got this sort of model, it's not a Class 2 building and it's not eligible for the SOAR rebate. So another model that is eligible for SOAR is use of the solar sharing gateway. And so you have a single solar system on the roof. You can have a single battery. You can connect that single solar system through a sharing gateway, connected up to individual lot meters and to the common area meter. And that is eligible, that model. And so the world first system to do this was the Illume Energy SolShare, developed in Melbourne over the last 10 years. Product now being exported to the US, UK, Europe. 6,000 apartments are already connected, and current installs in progress will take this to over 10,000 apartments connected. And we should also mention, there's also from Melbourne, there's another company that's entered into this space of doing solar sharing gateways, which is the Zico Marshall system. And they've now done a pilot site at Frankston in Victoria. Okay, so in the North Sydney area, and in fact in the Ausgrid area, which is all of metropolitan Sydney, the very first apartment building to do the Illume Energy SolShare was Panorama at Neutral Bay. And it was done in a new development that's 3 premium apartments, and they have a 16 kilowatt shared solar system. And the approval went in February 2020. So since 2020, we've had Illume solar sharing systems here installed in the North Sydney area. And you can see here's a picture of the actual solar sharing equipment. These are the inverters, and a great view there from Panorama. And another building that's been featured on a webinar with North Sydney Council previously, Gary Draffin from 26 Woolcott Avenue, led his strata to do Illume Energy SolShare for 5 apartments, and that was also using flexible solar panels that could be bent to the curved roof. So you can all look that up, and there's a great case study from North Sydney there. So let's just go back and recap. So what are the federal government incentives related to solar and batteries? So you've got the small scale technology certificates. They apply to solar systems that are under 100 kilowatts in size, and batteries that are under 100 kilowatt hours in size, but they're only claimable on the first 50 kilowatt hours. And you know that might give you $2,500 off a 6.6 kilowatt solar system, or $4,000 off the price of a 13.3 kilowatt hour battery. There is another federal incentive for large scale solar. It's called large scale generation certificates, but you don't have to worry about that, because in the history of New South Wales, I can only think of one apartment building that's gone over 100 kilowatts with their solar system installed. That's the Oaks Goldsboro building in Pyrmont. So most likely you'll just be in this zone with the federal rebate. And then we're recapping, what are the New South Wales government rebates applicable to solar and batteries? Well, we've been talking about the SOAR rebate. That's a temporary one that came in February, closing in December. Now, there is one area that's confusing people a little bit is back in November 2024, the New South Wales government announced its own battery rebate on batteries between 2 kilowatt hours and 28 kilowatt hours. And it was called the Peak Demand Reduction Scheme, or that's a program, and batteries were eligible under that Peak Demand Reduction Scheme. So that rebate has been discontinued from the 1st of July when the federal cheaper home batteries came in. So you can't get, they used to offer you a $1,600 to $2,400 rebate on a battery. You can't get that since the 1st of July when the federal cheaper home batteries came in. But what they did was, under this peak demand reduction scheme, the New South Wales government boosted up the incentive that they will pay to you if you install a battery and then connect it up to a virtual power plant. And we'll go into that a little bit more in a second. So they're not giving you, New South Wales government doesn't give you any rebate on the physical battery, on the upfront cost of the battery. But if you go off and get the federal cheaper home batteries rebate on your battery and then install it, and to incentivize you to connect it up to a virtual power plant, the New South Wales government will offer you an incentive of up to $1,500 for connecting it up. And that can be an ongoing incentive. So what is a virtual power plant? So very quickly, this concept was kind of tested out in South Australia, which is a world leader in virtual power plants. They've had a program over there to install 50,000 home batteries with Tesla and Energy Locals for a number of years. And this idea of having people install distributed energy resources, such as batteries that can store energy, and then a central authority at a time when there might be a heat wave, middle of summer, the grid's being strained, then they can send out messages over the internet and discharge those batteries into the grid to firm up the grid and try and avoid a brownout or a blackout. And that's the whole idea of a virtual power plant. And so you're giving up part of control of your battery to allow an authority to discharge it if there's, a very urgent need, for energy at a particular time of year. So here are examples of different virtual power plants that you can join in New South Wales at the moment. Now, what the New South Wales government did is in November, when they first brought in the peak demand reduction scheme rebate for batteries, which is now discontinued, they had a little, incentive for you to connect that battery to a virtual power plant of $800. Now, they got rid of their upfront rebate, but they boosted up the incentive to about $1,500 if you connect up your battery to a virtual power plant. And now that's not the only payment you get. You'll have a commercial arrangement with all of these companies, and they'll all have different conditions and terms and everything. But expect that if you do connect up to one of these virtual power plants, you will get paid other money to your owners corporation. You'll get paid per kilowatt hour of energy, which is discharged during peak times, as well as getting your $1,500 incentive. So it's not just a $1,500. You still would expect to have a commercial arrangement about the energy that's discharged out of your battery. And peak demand reduction scheme, the certificates that quantify how much incentive you get are called peak reduction certificates, or PRCs. Okay, so we've talked a lot about solar and batteries. Now we're going to move on to heat pumps for hot water. And heat pumps are a future path for today's electric hot water systems or gas hot water systems that are more efficient, and they save you up to 80% on the cost of making hot water because they're capturing air temperature and using that to slowly heat the water. Now, heat pumps are probably the technology that can be eligible for the most different rebates of any technology that you can put into a strata scheme. So now the next thing to think about with heat pumps is it depends which brand and which model that you're buying as to whether it's eligible for a federal SGC rebate or a New South Wales Energy Savings Scheme rebate, or both a federal SGC rebate and a New South Wales Energy Savings Scheme rebate. So, for example, some famous heat pumps that get installed into strata buildings. Going back many years, quantum heat pumps might be eligible for the federal SGC rebate and the New South Wales Energy Savings Scheme. Reclaim Energy heat pumps might be eligible for the federal SGC rebate and the New South Wales Energy Savings Scheme, but a Mitsubishi Qton might only be eligible for the New South Wales Energy Savings Scheme rebate and not the federal SGC rebate. Now, heat pumps used to be eligible for the New South Wales Government Peak Demand Reduction Scheme rebate, but they're not since December 2024. If you're installing a heat pump, you need a heat pump installer who is or is affiliated with an accredited certificate provider or an ACP. And these ACP companies are just specialists in doing difficult government calculations for rebates on all manner of items, ranging from lighting to solar, batteries, heat pumps. So the heat pump calculations are some of the most difficult calculations. So in any commercial setting where you're doing a large heat pump that's a common hot water heat pump, to get the rebates, there will be an accredited certificate provider or ACP involved, and they might be a subcontractor to your installer, or your installer might be big enough to actually have that capability in-house. So with heat pumps, again, you need brands and models that have been registered with the scheme. It doesn't apply to every heat pump in the market. Again, you need qualified heat pump installers, and they've got to be installed according to Australian standards. The rebate applications have to go in within 90 days of the heat pump installation. And the simplest form of this is like the one system, electric or gas, swap out and one heat pump goes in. That would apply to, say, a strata, maybe a townhouse style strata where everyone has their own individual hot water system. Here's an example of that from Mossman in Lang Street, in the car park area behind the car. You've got a heat pump compressor and a storage tank for an individual townhouse. Now, on the government website, there are 900 models of heat pumps that are eligible for the federal STC incentives. And there's another break in the market around the size of the storage tanks for the hot water. So if you're under 425 litre, you're sort of in a residential zone for rebates. And here's some examples of maybe the installed price and a rough STC rebate from the federal government on particular, brands and models with particular litres of storage. Then after the SGC rebate, you can double dip with the New South Wales Energy Savings Scheme or Energy Savings Certificates, ESCs, which are under the Home Energy Efficiency Retrofits or HERE scheme. And that could, if it was a 200 litre heat pump, that could take off another $245. But remember, from December, you can't get the peak demand reduction certificates or PRCs under the New South Wales peak demand reduction scheme for heat pumps. Okay, then as we move into bigger strata buildings, you'll move to common hot water systems that serve more than one apartment. And you can install multiple heat pumps and put them in a manifold in an array of heat pumps together with multiple storage tanks, and you can claim rebates on those heat pumps. So there are a couple more conditions to be able to claim these rebates on common hot water systems. You've got to have identical models in the array. They've got to be joined in parallel and have balanced water flow across them. You need to get at least 60% energy savings, and you have to dispose of your original water heater, whether that's electric hot water, like electric resistive hot water, or gas storage, or instant gas. It has to be disposed of, so you can't keep it as a backup system. That's the main thing, is you have to commit to going across to a heat pump. So to give you a bit of an idea, as you get up into the commercial section of these rebates for heat pumps, you know, if you were doing a commercial heat pump with 1,000 litres of storage, upgrading from a gas boiler, you might get $6,000 to $7,000 of New South Wales ESS rebate on that project. But you'll need to be working with an installer who's connected with an ACP that's knowledgeable in these areas. Some examples are like National Carbon Bank, EC Focus, and others that'll be able to do the complex commercial heat pump rebate calculations across multiple schemes. So we need a few pictures. So here's 20 Ross Street, Waverton, that have installed a single heat pump for their 5 apartments, and they have common area solar there that's reducing the cost of running the heat pump. And this is 24 Woolcott Street in Waverton that actually upgraded from electric resistive storage tanks to electric heat pumps using the quantum heat pumps, which you can see here. And at the time, they would have been able to get the ESC, SDC, and PRC rebates, but now if they were to install, they'd only get the ESC, New South Wales, and SDC federal rebate on that system. And here's 110 Bay Road in Waverton with their array of Reclaim Energy heat pumps replacing their old original gas storage hot water system. And up in Chatswood, here's the Mitsubishi Qton, solar powered at 16 Freeman Road, reducing the cost of hot water for the apartments there. Okay, so we've talked about heat pumps. Now we're just going to have a look at what can be done in the waterland. So Sydney Water's been running a fantastic program called WaterFix for a number of years. My own apartment building went through this program, and you know, we saved about $6,000 a year on our communal water bill because all the strata buildings constructed before 2016 don't have separately individually metered cold water for every apartment. So if we're living in these older buildings, unless you're maybe a townhouse complex that has individual cold water meters, everyone's in it together, and everyone has to work as a community to reduce water because you're all sharing the same Sydney Water head meter. So the Sydney WaterFix program provides a free desktop assessment to a strata building, and you can find a link to that on their website by Googling it. Now we're going to jump over to local council rebates, and North Sydney Council's been running sustainability rebates for a couple of years now, and I'm just going to maybe pass over to Jordan, and Jordan might want to go through some of the local rebates that North Sydney Council's offering.
Yeah, thanks, Brent. I won't address all of them, but yeah, we have 14 rebates that Strata can apply for. We recently introduced in this financial year a window rebate, and also a switchboard upgrade rebate. So there is conditioned for that for apartments with 20 units or less. So yeah, really we're seeing an increase in strata rebates, common area strata rebate applications, and really encourage North Sydney residents to be part of the program, and link in with our future proofing apartment program as well. Solar up to 5,000, but we don't rebate on top of the SOAR program because it's such a strong offering already. And the battery with batteries up to 5,000 as well, but not if you claiming the federal home battery incentive as well. So not on top of that incentive. So yeah, that in terms of the strata space, I'd say solar, battery, EV chargers, and lighting are the most popular so far in the last couple of years.
But Jordan, if I get this correct, if you were to
Yep.
do a hot water heat pump, you could triple dip on federal SGC, New South Wales ESC, and North Sydney local council rebate.
Yeah, correct. We're
Yep.
happy. We're happy for residents to triple dip on hot water heat pumps. Not a problem at all.
Yep. Okay, good. So so that's the main thing is you can't stack some of all the rebates. Like if it's batteries, you can't stack it. The local council rebate on top of federal cheaper home batteries or solar, you can't stack on top of New South Wales SOAR. But heat pumps is it's the opportunity for triple dip. Okay, so let's just have a look at a couple of other items that might be of interest. So a couple of years ago, the New South Wales government ran an EV charging infrastructure grant program for strata buildings. Within the last month, they've confirmed that they're not going to be rerunning that program. But that was the target there is to subsidise installs of EV charging infrastructure into about 125 different apartment buildings using $10 million worth of grant funding. And those installs are still ongoing, 2.5 years later. There are still strata buildings that are gradually moving through and that program. But ARENA is a federal government agency. It stands for the Australian Renewable Energy Association. And they fund pilots of new technologies using specific vendors. And there was another example of ARENA doing grant funding for a specific technology a few years ago, and that was to subsidise Wattwatch's electricity monitoring devices. And I think about half a dozen of the North Sydney apartment buildings were part of that ARENA subsidised program called My Energy Marketplace and got electricity monitoring devices installed at a vastly reduced price. And in 2025, we understand ARENA is opening the opportunity for a limited number of strata schemes to install low power EV charging networks. So instead of using level 2 EV charge points, this will be using QR code activated power outlets at 10 amps to 16 amps single phase to slowly charge electric vehicles. And if you want to check in on some websites, my understanding is Knox Energy is the first of the companies to be accredited and certified under this ARENA program. And if you check on these websites, you might find when these companies publish that they have their ARENA subsidies in place, and you can follow up with these companies. Another one that we understand is going through the ARENA process, a little bit behind Knox Energy, is Ready Steady Plug. So this is an example of a Knox Energy QR code activated general power outlet connected to common property power in a basement car park at Olympia on Russell up in southeast Queensland, and you swipe a mobile phone app over the QR code to make the power run through this, and then you build off your credit card for each charging session. So always look out for arena subsidies as another place that Strata can benefit from. And something a little bit different, there's another federal agency called the Clean Energy Finance Corporation, or CEFC. And Josh from the CEFC sent me an email and said that they've signed a memorandum of understanding with a particular strata financier called LANC, and that's to develop a green finance, a lower interest rate green loan that could potentially be paired with the New South Wales solar for apartment residents rebate. The idea being to possibly get that down to a $0 install, but in a legitimate SOAR grant eligible way. We know that you can't use a power purchase agreement, $0 down offer in conjunction with the New South Wales SOAR grant, but this could potentially be a loan that could be taken out for the other 50%, and it could be at a lower interest rate. However, don't call Lennox Strata Finance yet, because you'll still get quoted the high unsecured loan rates because it's not actually published. Just wait for the announcement. Maybe the announcement might be in January. So no point calling at this point in time. You'll just get quoted the traditional high unsecured strata loan rates for a strata building at this point in time. But hopefully with this CEFC money, they'll be able to offer a lower interest rate than you would normally be able to get as an owners corporation going for unsecured lending, and start researching that maybe around January 2026. So it's been quite a lot that we've gone through. There's some more resources here. Feel free to scan this QR code and join the Electrify Strata WhatsApp group, where there are over 200 Strata electrification enthusiasts talking about all the things we've been talking about tonight. And I'll hand over to Jordan if there are any questions.
Thanks, Brent. We really appreciate your presentation and all the info there, and I'll make sure to include all the program links mentioned. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to send them through in the chat. I suppose it's a good opportunity for me to just have a quick plug about what's happening in North Sydney. So I talked about the rebates, but for any North Sydney residents, we've also got a Strata program called Future Proofing Apartment Program. Wattblock are the consultants there, and for Strata we provide free building assessments that focuses on sustainability upgrades. They're prioritized in terms of need and cost, and it's an easy to digest information there for you to take the next steps in your planning and hopefully action around what you want to do for your building. So if you are a North Sydney resident and you're not part of the program, I'll send through some links to that, and feel free to get in touch with us through the program links, and we can start the process of organising a building assessment for you. A couple of questions coming through now from Deb. Our electrical hot water storage systems are in the middle of each apartment, 3-story block. Are there any suitable heat pump style solutions for each owner?
Yeah, it starts to get difficult. Sometimes it's not possible if you don't have access to natural ventilation. And sometimes these old gas boilers are like stuck in very tight spaces and closed doors. And in those cases, you don't really have a viable heat pump upgrade option.
Okay, just going through the Q&A as well. Is a North Sydney budget for rebates being increased over time? Not at this point, no. It's we've kept the same rebate that amount that we started with, and we're finding that that's pretty much a sweet spot at this moment. But if demand increases over time, then we'll take a look at it. We've got some flexibility there. Let's see, Rainer, we've completed installation of 4 chargers in common parking places. We've got a substantial New South Wales government rebate. Can we get the North Sydney rebate of 5K for that as well? Yep. So normally we will rebate after from the cost deducted from the rebate that you have. But yeah, I think that's fine. We can do that for EV charging. Not a problem.
Is it within 12 months of the
Yeah,
invoice?
sorry.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So I should have mentioned that. That's a good point, Brent. Yeah. So 12 months of receiving the final invoice. Yeah. And we do that because we're trying to be as fair as possible, trying to give people as maximum window as possible to apply, but then we have to be fair to people who are planning upgrades as well and where that money sort of lies and goes to. So there's been questions around can we extend that or shorten it, but we're feeling at the moment that's sort of what we're comfortable with. What else? Is there any difference between rebates and grants, or are they all pretty well rebates if they're not incentives? Sean.
Okay. So, look, a grant is actually different from a rebate, which is different from an incentive. But I think of the things that we've talked about tonight, where we've used the word grant, we probably shouldn't have used the word grant. So I think, like, for example, the City of Sydney will have an environmental innovation grant. And if you've found something that's novel that hasn't been done in a strata building before and you're in that LGA, you can apply for that environmental innovation grant towards the project. Or then I think actually the other word is subsidy. So if Arena is providing money to a vendor and then the vendor's offering like a discounted electricity monitoring device or QR code activated low power EV charge point, then I think of that. You're not actually dealing directly with a government department. You're the beneficiary of signing up to a vendor and they're subsidizing your owner's corp. So I think you really have incentive, rebate, grant, and subsidy.
Yeah. Ariana comments that rebate is standardized grant, so competitive and need to be applied for. So that's a good point. There was a couple of questions around installing solar and battery, and do they need strata bylaws to cover this? Do you have any sort of other templates or examples?
So, okay, the good thing about the New South Wales SOAR rebate is because every lot owner is involved. Our understanding is that you only need a sustainability infrastructure motion to be passed at an EGM or an AGM, but you don't need a bylaw to be passed because which is actually cheaper for you as an owners corporation, because every time you add a bylaw, not only do you have the drafting fee of the bylaw, but you also have the lodgement fee with New South Wales Land Titles. And so our understanding is for the New South Wales and SOAR rebate, you can just pass a resolution under the Sustainability Infrastructure Amendment to the New South Wales Strata Schemes Management Act, and you don't need to actually add a bylaw So, but then if you're doing other projects like yeah, I'm just trying to think. If you were to do like a shared solar system that isn't eligible for the SOAR rebate, where you have a subset of owners um, paying on an individual unit basis to participate in a shared solar system, then you would need a bylaw because you've got to manage the ongoing different treatment of different owners within the owners corporation.
Thanks, Brent. We've got a minute left or so. So I'm just hoping, can you just touch upon the new is it legislation or around the sustainability
Yeah. So yep.
upgrades for Strata?
Yep. Since 1st of July, New South Wales Strata law has changed again. 3 new items that need to be done. If you've got any bylaws which inhibit sustainability in your apartment building, they need to be scrapped. And the most famous of those is hanging clothing on balconies. You can't have a bylaw that prevents that now because that's more sustainable than using the dryer inside your apartment. And the second change is that at every annual general meeting, you now have to have a line item where you consider sustainability at every annual general meeting. And the third change is every time you update your capital works plan, which in New South Wales, every strata scheme needs to have a capital works plan. You don't have to update it every year, but on whatever cycle you update it, if it's every 3 or 5 years, every time you update the capital works plan, you have to have a consideration of sustainable infrastructure in the capital works plan.
Thanks, Brent. I think we'll wrap it up here. So thank you so much for talking us through everything that's available right now. It's really exciting. I think it's there's never been more offerings for Strata than now, right? Is that fair to say?
It's the best it's ever been, and we hope it goes. Yeah, it's the best it's ever been. And one last thing, when Jordan sends out the pack we went through tonight, there's an appendix with some of those calculations if you're going into stage 2 of the New South Wales SOAR rebate, and hopefully that might give you a few hints and tips in terms of getting through that stage 2 application.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks everyone for joining us tonight and for your questions and for participating. Thank you very much. Have a great night.